The Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill trails the 2020 Planning White Paper, which proposed radical reforms that planning hasn't seen since the Second World War. Now, the Levelling Up Bill brings forward some of the less controversial proposals, moving more towards streamlining the planning process.
The bill in its current shape provides for further detail to be provided in secondary legislation, particularly around things like the infrastructure levy, which will sort of set out in more detail how certain things will work in practice.
Some of the main planning changes outlined and being put forward in the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill surround plan making, decision making, and the introduction of a new infrastructure levy. So in terms of plan making, the idea is to produce a more streamlined process of development. And the idea is for it to move more to digitalisation, focusing on an actual map showing where development will be supported and where it will not. Now, that has to be balanced by an increase in localism and what's known as potentially street votes, and more design codes and an emphasis on beautification of development.
The bill proposes to introduce a new set of national development management policies alongside local development plans. And those national policies are going to have primacy over development plans, which is a real change. Decision makers are meant to determine planning applications in accordance with the local plan and these new national policies, unless material considerations strongly indicate otherwise.
The Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill introduces a new infrastructure levy, which is intended to replace the community infrastructure levy. This current community infrastructure levy is discretionary across local authorities, whereas the infrastructure levy is intended to be mandatory. And whereas community infrastructure levy is based on an increase in floor space, the infrastructure levy will be based on the gross development value of development. The introduction of this new infrastructure levy is intended to reduce the use of Section 106 agreements, with them only being used for specific on-site infrastructure and on-site affordable housing. The issue here at the moment is we're not sure how infrastructure, which is going to be supported by the infrastructure levy, is actually going to be funded initially, because the payment from the developer comes at a much later date to when the infrastructure is actually required.
Another change is to allow permissions to be varied more easily. The bill introduces a new section 73B, which allows non-substantial changes to planning permissions, which was hoped to introduce more flexibility about how permissions can be amended. Currently, there's only two avenues, section 73 or section 96A. In the short to medium term, it may well slow the time period it takes for applications to be determined whilst planning authorities get to grips with the changes. In order for these changes to be brought in smoothly, local authorities need to be properly resourced. But that's not an issue which is unique to the bill. That's a long-standing issue which I think almost everyone in the industry would agree has needed urgent attention for quite some time.
It is critical for developers to engage with any consultations that come forward on statutory instruments. These obviously will be governing how development proceeds going forward, and it is crucial for developers to be able to have their voices heard because they will be the ones building on the ground.